3.
Okay, well, here we are. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for your listenership today. My name is Chad McDaniel. I'm the president and founder of Execs In The Know. I really appreciate your time and an important discussion today. And I was thinking, before I even introduce anything of the concepts today, I was really thinking in our working career, what an opportunity of a technology shift that's about ready to take place or taking place. Mike and I introduced you here shortly. We talked about the internet and what happened there. We talked about the mobile and how that changed things. We talked a little bit about a call center to a contact center. But when we start to really look at this third evolution of significant change, generative AI, ChatGPT, everything we're going to talk about, conversational AI, and how this can and will be a game changer in our industry, it really is mind-boggling. I personally cannot think of a more interesting topic for us as a community to be discussing right now than the one we're getting ready to have here shortly. I'm also saying that over the time in this particular webinar, I've spent a great deal of time, Mike, with you preparing, researching, and really looking at to make sure we get the right kind of answers, the right kind of understandings, and demything some of the things that are out there. So, Mike, I'm real excited for today's conversation. So from a schedule, Mike and John, I'm going to introduce them shortly. They're going to be kind of a one-to-many presentation. We have a lot of things to go through. So we're going to save the questions to the end after the session. So please put your questions in if you can. We're going to have a live demo. I get real excited about that. Mike, fingers crossed, no technology internet issues, but we're going to be brave and bold and do a live demo that I think our audience is going to enjoy. And then obviously there'll be a recording to the session that you'll have access to share or to re-listen with all the conversations that are taking place. So I've got a couple quick slides. Mike, if you could just give me a second here. If this is your first time to Execs In The Know, welcome. For the last 15 years, it really has been a passion of myself and many, many others in the community about elevating our industry. We are kind of a CX playbook for the CX practitioner, the corporate end user. We call it leaders learning from leaders. You have a great family, a great home here at Execs In The Know. We know how hard the job is that you have to do every day with customer expectations, also within employee success. So I do encourage you to get involved. There's many things we do in content research, in virtual gatherings and live gatherings. And our board here is a great number of leaders that help guide the conversation. I want to say thank you so much to our advisory board for all their efforts and everything they do to help Execs In The Know be what it is today. I'd like to extend a personal invite. Nashville's not a bad place to go. Quite a fun place. We're going to be live for our 2-day summit. If you've never been to a customer response summit, they have a very innovative and personalized approach. You really feel like you connect and you're part of something and part of a larger group. And we're going to center around transforming connections. So great speakers, great content, September 20th, 22nd. If you could mark your calendar, we'd love to see you in person. They're always lots of fun and great events. One last thing I want to leave is I would encourage you to join our Kia board. Kia is our online community board, which basically is a 24/7. You can connect with hundreds of other leaders in very real, rich, and robust conversations. It's free to join. Please reach out, chat at Execs In The Know. I'm happy to send you a link to how you can connect with hundreds of other leaders that are having rich and robust conversations 24/7. Okay. So Mike, John, thank you for putting up with me there for a few minutes as I wanted to set the tone a little bit, but thank you, Mike and John, for joining us from Quiq. Mike, I can't think of a better leader. And just when we think of the transformation from where you were before when you started Quiq to where things are today, I think we're in a great set of hands of experience. Maybe helpful, Mike, if you just first of all want to quickly introduce yourself and the company, what the company does, and then John, you can join in quickly after Mike there.
Thanks, Chad. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, no matter where you are in the world right now. I'm Mike Myer, CEO and founder of Quiq. I spent a long time in the customer service space. Prior to founding this business, I was CTO for a company that was called Right Now Technologies, which was purchased by Oracle and became Oracle Service Cloud. And I know that having previewed the attendee list, I know there's some folks on there that we've worked with in the past. So hello again. I founded this business with the observation that if I want to communicate with family and friends, the best way to get stuff done, for me, it was text messaging. And so my goal was to make communications with businesses as easy as it is to communicate with family and friends. And so we've been around for about 7 years. And as the company has evolved, we've started with first building out our digital platform for conversations. And then on top of that, we've made the platform smarter by adding conversational AI and then also adding AI to assist agents. And we're going to talk about those things in depth here today. So that's who I am. And with me on the call today is John Andersen. John, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, John Andersen. I am a conversational architect here at Quiq. I've been here a little over a year now. So I get the pleasure of working with customers to build the assistants that are helping power their automations and running those chats. So I enjoy what I do, and I've been really diving into the world of large language models, which we'll get into here in a little bit.
So, Mike, before we jump in, I just want to clarify something, and thank you, John and Mike. No matter who is listening, whatever channel they're using today for self-service, if it's SMS, text, web chat, Apple Messenger for Business, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, Google, I probably go through the list. This conversation is applicable regardless if it's one of those or all of those or even none of those. This is going to be applicable to all of that universe. Correct?
Absolutely. And let me just actually jump in and address that a little bit further. Thanks for teeing that up, Chad. So my goal for the session today is to help everyone understand what has happened in AI and how that may actually change your job, your customer service organization, your customer experience. And I'm going to do this in a way that it's not about Quiq. Chad twisted my arm and said, you just can't sell product all for the next 45 minutes. So we're going to talk more generally and hopefully give you an understanding of what the overall vendor market looks like for AI and to some extent, how we fit into that as well. And then the second part of the agenda for today is really to help you develop an understanding of what's possible in this next generation of AI. We've all been in this space for a long time, and frankly, Chatbot 1.0, it worked, and a lot of brands that we've worked with and other vendors have been very successful at solving very specific problems that are essentially don't go outside the lines, but if you're inside the lines, you can solve the problem pretty effectively with conversational AI. And what we're seeing now is in this next generation, you can go outside the lines, and the interactions are a lot more like interacting with a human, where in the prior generation, the interactions were very clear. You're going to interact with a bot, and you had to interact on the bot's terms. If you went outside of what the bot expected, then it wasn't going to work that well. And this next generation is a lot more human-like. And that's what I hope to demonstrate and share with you today. Just to kick things off in terms of a little bit more about who we are and who Quiq is as a platform. Chad mentioned that, and he did a good job of listing a bunch of channels. We support about a dozen different messaging channels in our platform. In addition, our platform can be the assistant nature of the platform. We're working on making it available on voice as well. So it's not only digital channels, but also the bot is available the assistant is available for voice channels as well. So what we are is, you can think of it as kind of two parts of our overall solution. The first one is we help customers answer their questions with conversational AI. And that's where we're going to focus a lot of our time today. And then the second part is we help organizations who have maybe already an investment inside of Salesforce or Oracle or Zendesk or Microsoft Dynamics. We help those organizations fully adopt the asynchronous channels that Chad rattled off before. And this that means that agents can work inside of this next generation digital contact center that we've built that fully leverages the power of async conversations and allows customers to come and go, and agents interact with a lot of customers simultaneously. So those two pieces together operate across the channels that you see across the bottom of the screen. So that's who we are. Let me go ahead now and let's dive into the meat of this conversation. And so, what is new in AI? This is almost anticlimactic at this point in time. When we started this webinar 3 weeks ago, people were trying to figure this stuff out. In the past 3 weeks, a lot has changed, and a lot of people have developed a better understanding. So it's interesting how fast the world is moving, and that speed is really demonstrated by this slide. And so you may have heard this parable before. When ChatGPT was released, it was one of the fastest technologies ever adopted. And so something like in 5 days, it reached 1 million users. And why was that? That wasn't because OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, was so effective at marketing ChatGPT. It was because of the viral nature of somebody went and tried it, and then they were like, oh, what just happened here? How can that be? I've never seen anything like that before. And then they posted it to LinkedIn or social media. And then all 1,000 of their LinkedIn followers saw the post, and they're like, what? How did that happen? AI isn't that good. And then they went and tried it. And so as a result of the kind of just the remarkable quality of interactions that were possible in this next generation of AI, the user base swelled really quickly. And so that's what makes this technology kind of so interesting to me. I mean, Chad mentioned earlier, there's the internet and mobile. And in my lifetime, there's only probably like one more big technology shift. And I believe this is going to be the big technology shift because you don't see an adoption of any other technology in 5 days taking off so quickly because it's so remarkable. And so that is what makes this so interesting for me. I will say, and we'll add a clip or a push for this at the end as well. If you want to learn more about how ChatGPT works internally, there's a link on the page here. Encourage everyone to scroll to the bottom of that, and we have a section called Tech Talks. And the Tech Talk section is by Kyle McIntyre, one of our lead engineers, super smart guy. It's not about Quiq at all. It's just about how this technology works. So if you want to understand in layman's terms how this ChatGPT and large language models work, I encourage you to go check out that site. And in about an hour, you'll have a basic understanding of how the technology works under the hood. So ChatGPT was really fast to be adopted. And if you go and interview companies and ask them, what is AI going to be most useful for? Well, it turns out customer service is the application that is most often cited as the opportunity to improve with AI. So that's why we're all here today. And we've got a great turnout for this webinar, partially because I think everybody else is realizing I got to figure this out because this actually might change the game. So let's dive in and talk a little bit more about large language models. And so everybody's probably heard this term. A large language model is essentially the AI that underpins ChatGPT. And so from the standpoint of AI versions, you've heard of maybe GPT-4 or GPT 3.5. ChatGPT is basically a chat interface that sits on top of the large language model. And so that chat interface is what you would, if you tried ChatGPT, it's what you would have interacted inside of the website. The underlying language generation and the internet searching capabilities that comes out of that, that is what is the large language model is doing. And then as we, as a vendor in the space, as we work in this technology, we don't actually use ChatGPT. We directly access the large language model through APIs. So what are good what are the skills of large language models? What are they good at? Well, they're good at two different things. The first one is they can answer questions from internet search. And so a large language model was trained with an incredible volume of data, basically all the data on the internet, circa 2021. So an organization went and scraped all this data, kind of made a snapshot as of 2021, and ChatGPT consumed all this data. And so that gave it knowledge of basically all this information that existed on the internet. The other thing it did is it trained it how to speak language. And so if you think about kind of like how, as a human, how have you learned language? Well, you learned language because throughout your entire existence on the face of the earth, people spoke and you're constantly listening. So you're basically, as a baby, from years 1 through 3, you learned basic language skills. When you were in college, you learned advanced language skills because people started to speak more in more complex terms. And so over the course of your lifetime, you've also consumed an enormous amount of training data that gave you language skills. And so as a result, when somebody says the sky is, in the back of your mind, you're like, probably blue. Like that's probably going to be the answer. Maybe it's cloudy. That might be another answer, but you know what's coming up next in the sentence. You probably don't expect yellow because like nobody ever says that. That's not part of the training set that you've received. And the same thing is true for the underlying large language model. So large language models, because they've consumed all this language and been exposed to all this language, they're really good at understanding language and generating language. And you see on the slide here, there's a bunch of skills that like writing poetry or summarizing or rewriting text, that in some ways they're better than humans. Because if you think about, if I gave you 5 paragraphs and said summarize it in 2 sentences, humans would do, like some humans would do a great job. Some humans might not do as good a job because they forgot what was in the first paragraph. The large language models are really good at skills like that because as a computer, they can actually absorb all the information and summarize it accurately. So those at a high level are the skills that large language models are great at. So then what are they not good at? And everybody in the call probably, if you've spent any time looking at this technology, understands these 3 things really well. And so number 1, they're not always accurate. And in the industry, and this has become a widely understood term, there's this thing of hallucination. And a hallucination, I like to describe as, it's like when you're talking to your grandfather and there were 2 events that happened in history. And in his mind, it's a little cloudy about like what happened there. And he'll say like one thing that was maybe related to the other. And in fact, they weren't related at all. And at that point in time, your grandmother will be like, that's not the way it was. And that's essentially kind of what a hallucination is. It's basically ChatGPT is a little confused. It's got some events in its mind that are similar, and it associates them together. So that's a significant problem if you're going to use this technology for customer service, because you can't be making up answers for customers. The second one I talked about earlier, you can't have stale data before 2021. And then number 3, there's a lot of customer service interactions that aren't just solved by static information. Any real customer service problem probably involves looking up that customer's account, seeing what the current balance is, what the loan status is, whether their account has been disconnected, et cetera, et cetera. And that stuff is all real-time information that needs to be accessed in your internal systems, things that aren't accessed publicly on the internet, things that ChatGPT or the large language model wasn't trained from. So the long story short of this is, and I hope nobody's actually tried it, ChatGPT is not fit for public-facing customer service use today. However, those skills underneath the hood, the large language model skills, those are very useful and available to be used in customer service today. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of this time talking about. So in summary, an LLM has 2 skills. It's able to read and write language, and it's able to answer questions with search. And our job to be able to use this technology is essentially to give an LLM amnesia. And so what does an amnesia mean? Well, when a person has amnesia, they don't forget how to speak. They can interact and write, but they don't remember anything. And so that's exactly what we want to have happen in our usage of large language models. We want it to forget everything that it was learned, because we want to give it the accurate information that we have, but we want to use its language skills. And so how do we do that? Well, we do that through some magic that some very smart people in the back office of Quiq have developed, that allows us to essentially take a question from a customer, decompose that question, and use a large language model to understand the nature of the question. Maybe we need to understand what the intent of the question is. We might need to understand what things are referenced inside of the question, like what names or addresses or account numbers were referenced inside of the question. And we do that in an iterative process to actually fully understand what the intent of the customer's question is. And then once we understand what needs to be done, we're going to go and connect that to internal information sources. So that internal information could be knowledge. It also could be data. Once we've got the answer, then the next step is we need to compose a response. And so this is, again, something that a large language model is really good at. We can consume the information and write it out in a form that is as if a human was personalizing a response exactly for a customer. And that gives a really nice answer for the customer. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand this over to John, and we're going to actually take a look at how this works in the real world. So as we do this, if you have any questions that you would like to actually ask the assistant, feel free to put them in chat, because we don't necessarily want to be like, we've all sat in demos and you never try anything in a demo that is risky. So if you'd like to ask a question, feel free to put that in the chat. We'll walk through a scenario here that is with a mythical rafting company, and we're going to schedule some rafting expeditions. John, over to you.
Okay. So Mike introduces here, we've got a whitewater rafting company here, and we are going to just interact with it a little bit and see what we can, what kind of questions we can ask and what kind of answers we can get. So we'll come in and maybe I just have a couple of questions. So I don't know, my son loves animals. What kind of wildlife could we see? What it's going to do is it's going to go out and it's going to hit the knowledge base that this whitewater rafting company has, and it's going to give me an answer. So here it's going to tell me what I might see, and then it's got that caveat. We're not guaranteeing anything, right? So it's answering my specific question, and it's going to give it to me from the knowledge base. I don't know, maybe do I have to be a good swimmer? What it tells me here. Okay, so I don't need to be a good swimmer, but I should be comfortable in and around water. And it's given me some recommendations on, wearing a life jacket, all that kind of stuff. So and this isn't exactly the way that FAQ is written in the knowledge base. So it's contextualizing it and it's giving me an answer based on my specific question. Here's a good one for a rafting trip. Will I get wet? There are times here where I might have, there we go. Yep. It's hitting the knowledge base and making sure that it's got the answer that it's going to give us here. So, okay, so I am going to get wet on the trip, right? So in that way, I can start to interact with the FAQs and ask my questions and get them answered. You could continue to ask these. I don't think I see any yet in the chat. So let's do this. Let's come in and say, I'm just going to start a new chat session here, just for, I want to show let's say I want to make a booking. I want to actually reserve a trip here. Let's see if I can do that. So I don't know, my son is turning 6 this summer, and my wife and I take him rafting for his birthday. Be old enough? I don't know, he's only turning 6, right? Okay, great. So he is old enough. He had to be 6. And then it's telling me, we look forward to providing you and your family with an unforgettable adventure. So that sounds pretty good to me. I'm going to say I want to start reservation. Okay, what date? Let's say, I don't know. I'm thinking the first week of August. Notice I'm not giving it an actual date, even though it's asking me one. So this is where you can get that. This is the power of the LLM, right? It's not going to tell me I need to stay a specific date right away. So, okay, great. For the first week of August, and it's telling me what days are available. So we can go anywhere from August 1st to August 6th. They're closed on Mondays. Let's say, I don't know, let's go with the 3rd. This is kind of nice because I can do this conversation. I can have this conversation more conversationally than if it just told me to pick a specific date right at the beginning. Okay, so how many people are going to be in the group? I'm going to say, let's see, it'll be the 3 of us. But let's do this. Plus my son's friend. Let's add another here. Fun. Okay, so it says, thanks for letting me know that there's 4 people in a group, which is pretty cool, right? We didn't say there's going to be 4. We said it's going to be 3 plus my son's friends. So it figured that out and knows that there's going to be 4 people in my group. And it wants to know if I want to do a full day or a half day. But I'm kind of curious, how much do they cost? Impact my decision, right? There's a little bit more information I want to know before I can give it the information that it wants to know. So I'll ask that question and see what the answer is. Okay, 90 or 160 for half day versus a full day. I'm taking a 6-year-old, so I want to do a half day. So now it's going to parse out that I want to do a half day trip, and it's building this reservation here in the back. Okay, so do I want to do morning or afternoon? Let's say afternoon would work best. It's cold in those Montana mornings out on the river, right? So I'm going to go in the afternoon. Hope it's a little sunny out there. So it's building the reservation here for me. Okay, so it's got it started. It needs my name, email, phone number. I'm going to say, sure, my name is John Andersen. My email is John at Quiq. Notice I didn't put the phone number in, even though it asked me for it, because I want to show how it keeps me on track. Even though I've given it some of the information, it knows that it needs my phone number too, right? So now it's going to ask me again for my phone number. I can say, oops, sorry about that. It's okay. So now it'll check and it says, okay, I've got his name, I've got his email address, the number of people, the day, the time of day, all of that. So I'm gonna book a reservation. And here you can see it's got my name, 4 people, the date we chose. And then I am just hitting the server here. I will have the ability to pay here within the inline here. In just a second. So this is kind of nice. 4s and 2s there when you're typing it out. Just 24. Just going to fill this in real quick. All right, so we'll pay. So it's going to get a payment complete here. Once that hits, I'm going to finish this conversation. So it's given me all my information here to confirm my reservation. So that's nice, right? I was able to just have a conversation, ask a couple questions during it. I was able to get the answers that I needed, and I was able to book that that actual reservation right there. I'm going to end the conversation, and then what I want to do is I'm going to do a forget me, which is just a way to get a fresh chat session. So let's pretend now it's, I don't know, a week later, and I have another question. All right, so I'm coming from out of state, right? And I say, I'm going to come in and say, I had to change my travel plans. I need to reschedule my rafting trip from August 3rd to, I don't know, let's do it to the 10th, the next week. My trip got delayed by a week, so I'm going to move it from the 3rd to the 10th. Okay, so sign in to get the reservation so I can access it. I'm going to use that email that I signed up with. In, and it's going to do what it does here. Pull up my reservation. Okay, so it says you can see my original trip is the 3rd, and would you like to change it to August 10th? Is that correct? If so, confirm it. So yes, I can confirm. Great. So update the reservation to reflect the new date of August 10th. So that was pretty easy, right? All I had to do was associate it with the email that I came in with, and I could just tell it conversationally like, hey, my travel plans changed. I need to change the date of my trip. I did it. So now that I've done that, let's say I appear to be a very forgetful person here. So another week later, I come in and I say, I need a reservation, but I can't remember the date. Can you help me confirm that is? So it knows that I'm looking for a reservation. It's classified me as an existing customer. On the back end, we don't see this. It knows I have a reservation based on what I've said, and it said, okay, let's look it up. And again, this is a new session, so this is a week later. It's not like I've given it all this context as I'm typing here, and it's going to look up my reservation. Great. Okay. And you can see we've got the half day on the 10th, which is the date I just changed it to. It's got my phone number and my email address and all of that. So in that way, I can do all of those things conversationally. I can book a reservation. I can change a reservation. I can ask it to tell me when my reservation is because I've forgotten. And I can do that all through the power of the LLM because it can recognize what I'm saying, and it can give me its answers conversationally and contextually. The last thing that I'll show is they come in and, all right, now I'm a very organized person. I'm going to say, I'd like to book a morning rafting trip for, let's say, 6 people on, I don't know, June 22nd. Let's just pick that. My name is John Andersen. And my email is there's going to be a lot going on here. The LLM is now, I've told it what I want. I seem to have given it all the information, but it needs to pick up on morning trip, the date of June 22nd. It needs to check whether we're open that day or closed that day. It's for 6 people. It's for, it's got my name, my email, my phone number. So it's checking all those things. Do I have the name? Do I have the email? Do I have the phone number? Do I know how many people? All these things. And I can still then click book a reservation, and we can see it right here. It's got my name, 6 people, the date, the cost, because I chose a morning trip for a half day there. So in that way I could go through and pay, and I could confirm the reservation. I could change it, all of that. So in that way I can do a lot of different things when I hit the LLM, and I have it contextualize those responses to me, while I can also ask it questions that it can get back. With that,
Awesome, John. Thank you. There were a couple questions in the chat while we were running through the demo. I'm going to just address them really quickly, and then we'll run through the rest of the presentation. So the first question was, what's the difference with traditional chatbots? Well, we've been in the traditional chatbot space for a while. Quiq has. And the experience that we just showed in terms of understanding dates, understanding the number of people in the trip, understanding language, and then generating responses that were very customized for the particular question that the customer had asked, that stuff was never possible in the past. So the difference from traditional chatbots is there's just a much higher level of language understanding and language generation capabilities. Somebody also asked, well, what happens if you didn't just type a sentence, but you just said, like, reschedule? And just like a human would understand, you'd be like, okay, reschedule means like I want to reschedule a reservation, and we'd go into the reservation flow. So I realized that you never trust anybody giving a demo, and I'm a vendor, so I'm like guilty of that. But like the language we showed here was just examples of what a customer might say. Customer could type their question in any way that anybody else would express it to another human. Somebody else asked, what about if a reservation cannot be changed? And so that'd be up to the business flow of the organization of what happens then. Maybe it recommends a different trip, or goes into some other flow that handles that unable to be changed reservation. And then there's a question about accuracy and hallucination, and I'm going to hold that until the end, because I actually have a slide, and I'm going to talk a little bit further about that. So at this point, I'm going to go back and take control of the slides and advance, and let's run through the rest of the presentation. We'll be happy to answer some more questions at the end. One thing that's interesting about the interaction that John showed was inside a web chat. There's always a question of like, okay, I want to do the same thing in voice. And the answer is, yes, you can do the same thing inside of voice. However, voice has some inherent limitations. And so I think in the future, you're going to see more conversations move into digital. And so what are those limitations? Well, if you think about the experience where John had the order confirmation, and it was like 5 people, the price, the date, and then pay, like an interaction like that is pretty difficult inside of the phone, because you're listening on the other side to like your reservation has the following details, and then it starts reading. And people can listen to a sentence or two, but it becomes difficult to listen to more complex ideas. And of course, inside of a phone call, you can't actually send a link to the reservation confirmation, or you can't actually send a picture of what the river looks like. And so there's a bunch of reasons why I think in the future, the optimal channel for solving customer issues is going to be more digital. That's not to say you shouldn't support voice, but your voice conversations might be more multimodal. And what I mean by that is a conversation like this, I'm calling to find out what my order is, would be answered simply. And then for more detail, perhaps that conversation should be moved over to a messaging channel, so that you could actually see the details of the order in the text message, because it's a lot easier to consume a table of information or a picture inside of a message than try to describe it over the phone. So realize I'm a little biased here because I come from the digital space, but I think that we'll see more of these multimodal and voice interactions moving into digital because of the richer interaction possible in the digital channel. Okay, I wanted to spend a few moments in the conclusion of the webinar. We spent all this time talking about how large language models and AI could be exposed directly to customers. And the reason we focused on that is because, frankly, that's where the greatest opportunity is for cost savings and efficiency inside of the contact center. Because if you can eliminate humans entirely from the conversation, that's the biggest benefit. But there's a lot of stuff that's possible also inside of agent facing. And frankly, I touched on some of these in the beginning. Some of the things are going to be table stakes inside of the future generation of applications in the contact center. And so 2 examples, I talked about summarization in the beginning. LLMs are really good at summarization, and it's going to become, every product is going to have a really quality summarization just built on top of LLMs. So, here's a conversation. Give me the synopsis of that conversation in 1 or 2 sentences. There's also AI authoring. And if anybody saw Google's announcement this past week, they introduced a feature inside of Gmail called Help Me Write, which is basically write some notes and then have a really well-formatted response written. And so same thing here. If you can see this on the screen, the agent types an abbreviated version of what they want to say, and the LLM rewrites it to an appropriately formatted, very formal response. And so this can actually be a way that agent satisfaction can be increased, because, imagine you got a question and the customer says, I bought this 3 months ago, I want to return it. And, in the back of the agent's mind, they're like, you're screwed. We only accept returns after 60 days. Tough luck. That's what the agent's thinking, but they got to be polite and they got to type a nice response. Well, with this feature, you could actually say, you're screwed. We don't accept returns after 60 days. And then LLM will rewrite it into a nice formal response. And so the agent actually has a little more fun in their job, because they can be a little more informal, and the LLM is the formal interface into the customer. So those technologies, we have it coming very soon. Other folks have announced things that are coming in this space as well. I think you'll see this across lots of applications in the space. In addition, the question always comes up, well, okay, so LLMs are amazing. Does this mean that my company data and training my own large language model, or training my own AI model, not large language model, but training my own AI model, is that a thing in the past? And short answer is, I don't think so. I'm not 100% certain on this, but for the foreseeable future, there are use cases where taking all of your existing conversations, because there's such a volume of knowledge contained inside of those conversations, and turning that into suggestions for customers so that they can help other future customers more efficiently, and help less experienced agents come up to speed faster. There's a ton of value there. And so the standard large language models, they can't be trained on your own data, at least not large corpuses of your own data. And in some cases, the large language model isn't fast enough to respond. And so, in a use case where you want to do autocomplete, so as the customer's typing, we want to complete the sentence for them based upon what other agents have said in similar situations in the past, we have a feature called Quiq Compose that actually does this. The underlying technology doesn't go fast enough for some use cases in a large language model. So long story short, I think that there are still significant needs for training AI models with your own data, but that'll probably be more agent-facing applications and maybe not as much customer-facing applications. Okay, we're on the home stretch here. So let me wrap up with a few slides. What should you do now? And so how to get started? My suggestion is start with customer-facing AI, because it is the lowest hanging fruit, the greatest opportunity for a return on investment. Start on digital channels, because it's easier to bring this technology into digital than it is to integrate into voice. And then if you've got an existing kind of prior generation 1 chatbot in place, replacing that with the state-of-the-art LLM, as John showed, in the beginning, if you've got a chatbot that serves knowledge today, the answers that are available to come out of an LLM chatbot are so much better. In a traditional chatbot, it identifies one knowledge article and returns that knowledge article. In the answers that we showed that were coming out of the rafting reservation bot, we were able to take multiple knowledge articles, combine them together, and the LLM summarized them and provided the answer very specifically based upon the customer's question. And that technology just doesn't exist in kind of like that generation one chatbot space. So that's the lowest hanging fruit. If you've got an existing bot, you should just upgrade it ASAP. And then if you don't have an existing chatbot, you should actually put an LLM on top of your knowledge. And then the final step is identify the lowest hanging fruit or the highest inquiry volume, and start to automate those things through APIs into the backend system. And if I was a rafting company, making reservations is probably what I do all day long. So I'd want to automate the rafting reservation process like we showed. Okay, so what should you be looking for inside of a solution? Well, so this is my vendor specific view. This isn't like necessary for me. This is as you consider vendors in this space, what should you consider? First of all, you should never trust a demo. So you probably want to actually ask for a real life site to use and interact with yourself. And so be hands-on, try to break it, try to get it to hallucinate, encourage everyone to be very, maybe, I don't want to say distrustful, but skeptical, and prove it to yourself that the technology actually works. And so if anybody wants to come and kick the tires on our application, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to facilitate a tire kicking session. So that's the first part. The second part is it's very important. And so everything we showed was kind of like, it looked really amazing, but how do you know it's actually working? And that turns out to be a really hard problem with this technology. Like, how do you know if customers are getting the right answers? How do you know if customers are abandoning or not abandoning? How do you know what information the AI doesn't know and should be added to the AI so it can answer better? Those are really hard problems with this next generation technology. And we're working to solve those. But as you consider vendors, make sure that you actually don't just look at what the AI does, but also how to measure the AI. And then finally, I wanted to kind of address maybe some potential objections. And so, I've heard it from a number of people where the observation might be, well, ChatGPT is against company policy. And yeah, like that's a reasonable company policy. Like you shouldn't be using ChatGPT for internal company information, because the ChatGPT interface, unless you have a paid version, is going to be using your data as part of their training set. You don't want to share your proprietary data with OpenAI in the training set. But vendors, including Quiq, we have direct access to the LLM that's beneath ChatGPT, and that does not have any of the security concerns that the public-facing ChatGPT is. So while ChatGPT is against company policy, using the LLM should not be against company policy. It's covered by SOC 2, and it has strict regulations about how the data is used. And in our SOC 2, it is basically part of our SOC 2, which guarantees that the data that we're using will only be used for your business purpose. So that might be an objection. The other objection might be like, well, this stuff is moving so fast, we should just wait 6 months to see where it's going to be in the next 6 months. And my answer to that is we took a huge stair-step function in change here. And as I described earlier, like there's two parts of the LLM that are important, knowledge and then search, or language and search. And so we're using the language skills. Language skills are really good. And so I don't expect that there's going to be another stair-step change. And so I encourage folks to don't sit back waiting for the next thing. The current one is good enough that you should actually start to adopt and use it, because the ROI is so great. You don't want to be the last one to adopt this technology. Your CEO is going to be calling and saying like, hey, have you looked at this ChatGPT thing? So with that, I see there's a bunch of questions in the thread here.
Yeah, a couple quick comments. Well done, by the way. Thank you, John and Mike, so much. One thing I did notice in your example, John, it was very clear at the top, AI assistant digital assistant or something. I can't remember the word. So very clear at the top. We had a little bit of discussion about that previously. I want to ask the community something real quick. And Mike, we're going to jump right into quick power answer Q&A here. As a community, as CX leaders, as we sort of hear and listen to, there's a lot to unpack. What is on your mind? What do you feel? What's your concerns? Where are you still at in this personally? I'd love to just see some comments as a CX leadership community. How do we see and feel about this? Are we excited? Are we concerned? Where do we kind of sit right now? I'd love to hear just some comments. So if you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. Mike, we've got a number of questions. You want to just rapid fire? I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. There's a handful of questions that all kind of revolve around like hallucinations, accuracy, trustworthiness, brand voice, things like that. And so our job as a vendor is to remove all of those concerns. And so, if you remember the slide that I showed, like how does it work, and decomposing the problem, understanding the problem, accessing your company information, and then generating response. In that process, we're taking a bunch of different steps to make sure that the LLM isn't doing anything that it shouldn't be doing. And so those techniques underlying that stuff, we're looking at incoming requests to essentially apply some moderation filters to incoming requests to make sure that those things aren't invalid. We're looking at putting a bunch of different types of guardrails inside of the LLM based on where in the conversational dialogue the interaction might be occurring. Those guardrails will be changing so that we kind of keep the LLM on track with the task that is currently at hand. We're also doing things where on the response side, content filtering. So we understand what types of response should be coming back from a particular question. And we're comparing that and understanding or checking to make sure that there's no scary things coming back from the AI or the AI gets off track. So it's not as easy as just like, oh, I need to go tell the LLM what to do. There's really kind of those three steps of, first of all, we need to like pre-process, then we need to instruct the LLM, and then we need to post-process. So the answer to all those questions around hallucinations, it's our job to eliminate them. And I think we've done a really good job of figuring out how to keep the LLM on track. Other questions, there's a question about language and bilingual, and that's a good question. I didn't actually touch on that particular aspect of LLMs, partially because as this technology evolves and our understanding of how to use the technology evolves, we haven't deployed a automatic language translation interface yet. However, the underlying technology is there. And so what I mean by that is, incredibly, the LLM is able to digest information in one language and summarize the output in another language. And so, for instance, you might have a English knowledge base and a fresh customer and get answers from the knowledge base in English and give it to the LLM and say, respond in French. And the LLM, when its language generation phase, is actually able to generate really good foreign language as a response. So LLMs don't just understand English, they understand all languages that existed in the training set, which is pretty much all languages on the internet. So as a result, I think that you'll see in the future, maybe not too far in the future, but in the future, I think you'll see kind of another aspect of this next generation, which will be LLMs will be multilingual based upon a single language original source. Other questions, and there's a bunch of different ones out here. There's a question about, well, how do I protect my data from OpenAI or the LLM? And there's been a lot of discussion about kind of like the security of OpenAI and large language models and being able to, where's the data going, and is the data going to become part of some training set? And again, that's our job to make sure that the vendors we're using to provide large language models are not using the data for any purpose. And there are standards in place like SOC 2 and the audit associated with SOC 2 that guarantee the trustworthiness and the security of the data. So we're we're very focused on that, and all the stuff you see in the news about like ChatGPT and security, that pertains primarily to the interface that exists on the web. It doesn't pertain to a business use case such as we're using. Another question came in, and I love questions like this because it puts us kind of like, it has to prove our value in the world. And the question was, if all chatbot vendors are using the LLM, how will these solutions differentiate from each other? Yes, I mean, to a certain extent, I think about in the future, I think about LLMs almost like in technology, they play a role that's similar to the database. And so if anybody's been around for a while, I've got some gray hair, so I can remember the database wars. And so in like the late 90s, there was all this advancement in database technology, and people were building applications on databases, and they actually featured the fact that our application was built on Sybase, for instance, or Oracle, and it was a differentiating factor. And so over time, databases became just like a commodity, something that sit in the background. And the same thing is going to happen with LLMs. So the answer to the question of like, well, because we're all using the same LLM, well, we might all be using the same database. So it really comes down to how the application uses the LLM to build the experience, and how the application collects metrics and analysis and et cetera. So think of the LLM as like the equivalent of a database for language skills. So everybody's going to have like amazing language skills. It really comes down to how that language skill is built into the application. And that's where we think we're different, because we've got a really great application that covers the entire digital customer journey. And so we'll differentiate on the platform, not on the LLM technology under the platform. Any other questions in here, Chad or John, you think we should answer? Oh, is there a handoff to a live agent if necessary? Yes, for sure. That's another good thing. I never want to lose the fact that like, I don't believe this technology replaces humans. I believe that this technology replaces humans who answer routine questions that don't require a lot of judgment. And so in the contact center, there's always going to be questions that require human judgment and that are not routine. And so as a result, there should always be agent escalation. And that's part of what makes our platform really strong, is the ability to have a conversation be automated, but when the conversation can't be solved by the automation, have it seamlessly escalated over to a human inside of what we call this digital contact center, and let the human actually resolve the issue. And if necessary, also, again, if the human gets to a point where it's like, okay, we've moved back into routine question land after I solved your detailed question, they can actually pass it back to the automation and let the automation wrap up the conversation with a routine question. So it can kind of go all different directions here. It can start with automation, go to humans, or it could actually go to humans and then go to automation.
Well, I think what we should do, Mike and John, we'll take the rest of the questions. We can get back offline to those individuals and try to give some context to it. And thank you for all the great questions from everybody. One thing I would say, on the screen right now, there is that link. Mike, I personally went to that link and watched some of the videos you guys put there more as a tutorial and just sort of information sharing, and I took a ton of notes for them. So I would encourage, just through that effort, to take a look at that link and some of the information that is there. Well, we as a community, I first of all just want to say thank you, John and Mike. I honestly know this is not going to be the end of the conversation. This is going to be one of many, many conversations that are going to continue to happen. We need to stay more close than ever as a community as we continue to kind of unpack and digest through the different changing things taking place. So, Mike, I would also say for our community, Mike's always been a great advocate for the industry, for us as a community also. Mike's so willing to give of his time. Feel free to reach out to Mike or his organization, because I know he's willing to be really a leader, a thought leader in this industry for us. So thank you for that. So let's do this. We're going to make sure you get the copy of the recording. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Feel free to share it. They have to register to get the link, but make sure you share it, and we'll be happy to get that information over. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you again to everybody. We're going to have more information coming out to the community, either in written or in research or in more gatherings like this. So you're going to hear a lot more from us. Mike, John, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.